The ATX DAO podcast is brought to you by our friends at Tequila 512. Looking for a way to decentralize your happy hour? They got you covered. Welcome to the ATX DAO podcast, the hub for exploring the forefront of blockchain technology in Austin's Web3 community. We connect you with innovators within ATX DAO and beyond as we venture into the world of decentralized technology. So crack open a beer and join us for a front row seat to learn about the innovations and trends shaping our digital future. This is the ATX DAO podcast. Welcome to the ATX DAO podcast. We are excited to welcome our guest today, James Woodman from Manifold Labs. James, welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And we are coming to our listeners from the DEAI workspace, which is your space as well. So thank you for having us here. We're excited to be a part of this ecosystem.
Well, it's a cool space, and it's been fun to watch it grow. It's been now almost a year. We started it because we thought Austin needed some sort of hub to compete with what they have in Silicon Valley, which is, I would say, just organic networking and the ability to meet people who are working on the same thing as you are. So we're always happy to have you guys.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a way better version than like just WeWork, where it's just like, oh, everyone's kind of in tech, and then like there's like, it doesn't feel, then you think that you meet like 10 people in a row and they're in some portion of tech, and then you'll meet like 7 people in a row and you'll be like, they're not in fucking tech, they're just working here. And it's like, what the fuck? It's like, I met like 7 tech bros, and then I met this dude from Elmer Swim School. And like,
Really?
yeah, and I was like, you know, like I thought this was like a tech WeWork place. So it's kind of nice to like come in here and then you just, you organic conversations all around the same kind of general area of topic is kind of dope.
I think it's important because the reality is we're all figuring it out on the fly. There's no syllabus for how to build in this space. So having people who are sharing the same experience, I think, is invaluable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's also kind of great to see people at like the different state of decay that they're constantly in. It's just like we're all Monday and we're all just completely wrecked. But then there's that one person who's like, whoa, bro, like you're like fucking pumped. And it's just like, what is your secret here? And it's like, oh, it's a lot of Adderall.
Yeah. There's always a dirty secret that people sometimes admit. That's true.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good deal. So let's talk more about decentralized AI in general. So we've had a few different folks on the show that talk about that in general, but just for listeners that are maybe kind of curious about like, why does somebody want to use decentralized AI over a centralized AI like an OpenAI or Anthropic or something like that? So let's maybe set the stage there, and then later on we'll get to kind of what y'all do with Manifold.
Sure. I would say fundamentally from an end user perspective, I always assume that they won't care how the back end is structured. So what do people care about, or who are the users of decentralized AI? In my opinion, at least the market that we kind of work in, our little vertical, is the compute owners. And right now, if you look at the compute financing market, it's an insane one. I mean, Lambda Labs recently had a $500 million facility at a 15% interest rate. So this relatively high cost of capital is being passed on to the consumers of this hardware. And the hardware is so expensive. I mean, we run the math all the time and we say, okay, if you had this many H200s, this many H100s, this many B200s, even if you did some optimization, I mean, how much money is there really in this sort of, okay, let's acquire a chip, finance it, throw some debt on it, and then serve inference? It's not overly lucrative. I think a lot of the money is being made by the big guys, which makes it very difficult for a small player to enter the industry. Enter DEAI, right? With the market that we're building here, you're giving permissionless access to owners, which is powerful for a few reasons. One, the North Star for a compute owner is utilization. Your dream scenario is 100%. The power of a decentralized network like Targon is that we have this 24/7, 365 payout via what I kind of just call decentralized demand. If you're a traditional, I hate to keep picking on Lambda Labs, but we will for now, because why not?
We just have to break off to our new segment and shout out to our new sponsor, Lambda Labs.
Well, this actually might not be a sponsorship for them, because I'm about to say they're not doing it too well.
Oh, shit.
They're doing it okay. But But how do you aggregate these mid-tier owners and together create a hyperscaler that can compete with Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, the big boys? And it's hard when you've got unlimited ability to access the financing markets with equity capital that's worth $2 to $3 to $4 trillion. It's hard to compete with that. So what we're doing with our network Targon is we're allowing owners to bring their hardware onto the network. They're paid out at a pretty good hourly rate. Right now on H200s, you can earn about $2.50 an hour, which is in line with the market. But ultimately what we're trying to do is drive down the cost of that compute. And it's something that can only be done on these rails because, well, imagine if you had an order book and you had owners come in and they could put up their ask price and say, look, spot on the hourly, I'll take $1.50 on my H200s. You're unlocking this revenue stream and getting them closer to that 100% utilization, which ultimately makes the cost of capital lower, which ultimately makes the consumption of AI cheaper. Because right now, I mean, you look at OpenAI, yeah, they have a lot of growth. Yeah, they have a lot of usage, and it's very impressive. And even that business is going to be a hard one to compete with because they have effectively sovereign access to capital. I realize that we could talk about this all day long, but the reason we're interested in this intersection is because it can drive down the cost of capital for the most important resource, the compute commodity. And there's many ways which we can get into here over the next however long we want to spend, talking through the dynamics of, okay, what is the power of having a fully liquid market for this resource? Think CME style. It doesn't exist yet for compute. And it's made the market incredibly inefficient. I mean, there's warts all over the place. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't believe it. And so we're setting out to solve that via decentralization.
How much do you think like financial instrumentation along like decentralized AI networks or even decentralized AI networks can like reduce that cost even more? Like, you know, like we have obviously PE coming in and dropping in like, $300 million deals, $400 million deals, and financing these rounds for these larger conglomerates means like, hey, now we just have an extended amount of capital to like buy more fucking units. And then theoretically we hit this breakaway scale thing, right? Like OpenAI is the closest one to do that. Now, I wonder then, is it for decentralized AI, financial instrumentation around the power, around like the idea of like, hey, we have this compute capacity, we can create these varied financial instruments that even individuals who don't necessarily own the actual hardware device can buy in and then contribute liquidity capital to this to basically make this easier?
It's a very good question. I think it's something that the market needs. A forward contract. Mm-hmm. It's very common in traditional commodity markets to say as a corn owner or farmer, hey, I want to sell this many bushels at this price 6 months from now. That same instrument should exist in this new market. And I think we're uniquely positioned to build it actually because we have the built-in liquidity from the Targon network. Yeah, we're uniquely positioned to build that, the forward contract. And what I can imagine happening is, let's say you're RunPod and you have a client and they need access to 1,000 H200s. Instead of going through all of the different owners, calling them up, all the brokers between you and the owner, if you can't even get to the owner yourself, and trying to get the right rate at the right term, you could instead access a liquid order book where it says, hey, here you go, 1,000 H200s for the next 3 months at this price. And it's transparent, so the next owner can come in and say, oh, you're getting 250. I'd actually do that for 247. Mm-hmm. And because of the transparency, you're able to drive down the cost of the compute. That's a very powerful thing. And you're able to do this because you have the built-in liquid market with a $3 billion protocol like Bittensor. So it's almost, I call it our unfair advantage, which allows us to scale the supply side, the compute side, and now it's our job to go and get the enterprise onboarded, which we're proud to say we're doing. We have a few clients now who are paying us real money, which we're returning, and we're returning all of that value to the liquid market.
Okay, so in this case, I got to ask then, like, how many players are creating this instrumentation, like marketplace, around the compute facility that you guys are providing? Is it like specifically novel to you guys? Because it's like you mentioned CME, right? Like, if we're looking at contracts, the reality is like you're supposed to be doing it for a specific product. So compute as a product needs to have multiple different service providers that we offer contracts for. So like, has that been established? Or is it just in the nascent stages where it's like, bro, there's nothing like that right now. And it's like, we got to fucking ship this. Like, well, it's like, we're launching it right now.
The good news is it's not a novel idea.
Yeah.
I don't like complicated ideas. I like simple ideas that, with the benefit of hindsight, you'll look back in 10 years and say, wow, how did I not see that coming? And when you have an idea like that, it all comes down to execution. I think if you were around during the internet heyday, I bet pets.com also, when they were having a conversation like this one, they were like, oh, we could be the everything store on the internet one day. And it seems like it was a pretty obvious thing to think.
Yeah.
And I think a compute thing, in my opinion, is no different. It's clearly where the market is going. There are people who are trying to do it. There are companies who are trying to do it without Web3 as well, actually. There's one called San Francisco Compute, and they're just effectively a middleman and creating an exchange, which is interesting, and maybe it could work. But I think you get that added boost with the incentive that will almost give you this perpetual discount to what any Web2 counterpart could ever offer. And the reason is, I mean, look at CoreWeave, for example. They only made $1 billion. Only. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah, I know,
great.
right?
Billion
Yeah.
last
I'm
quarter.
crying myself to sleep to get that revenue. Yeah.
So they made $1 billion last quarter, right around $1 billion. So they'll make $4 billion for the year, but they're trading at $75 billion.
Yeah.
So that revenue multiple is very common in the traditional capital markets. Our market should be no different. They will be no different. So if you're returning revenue, you'll enjoy this premium. If you enjoy this premium by the holders of your token, this gives you a discount to the spot price that you then pass on to the consumer and to the application builders, all of these different entities.
So, okay, so like break down this pipeline for me for like for the layperson listening to this. So like my mom uses OpenAI, right? So she like prefers to use OpenAI more than she uses ChatGPT more than she uses Google now, right? Which is kind of wild to think about because she's much older than me, obviously. But like that being said, like she grew up in that Google Alta Vista, Yahoo era, AOL, and the fucking CD. I was like, what the fuck is a CD? Right? All right. That being said, so she's using this, and then like the compute that they have derived is a centralized level of compute where they raised all this money. They built this huge fucking warehouse, and they have all these servers running all this 100s and all these variations of alphanumeric fucking variations of this computer code. And all that data is going to one single provider. And the reality is like her asking like, hey, should I be making my scrambled eggs in this kind of way versus like something that's like a hard hitting question that really needs a lot of fucking compute is all getting shelved in and put into those servers, right? Now, how does that then differentiate with this workflow of a decentralized AI workflow?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yes.
And we could go in many directions. I think that what OpenAI and ChatGPT is doing from a product perspective is beyond fascinating. Because you're right, Google is now got to be just shaking in their boots. Because everyone I know, it doesn't matter how equipped you are or how tech savvy you are, you're using ChatGPT all the time because it's hyper personalized and it's kind. It's all the right things.
Yeah.
You're correct. They have a ton of data. You're correct. They're running it all in a centralized place. So let me go one by one. The product's impressive. Maybe we talk about that later.
Sure.
Number two, the data part. I think that's quite dangerous. I mean, they already have a profile on all of us.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're like, oh, James, he likes the Miami Dolphins. He does this at this time, right? All of this just insane stuff. And even more specific than that, right? It's almost like a journal for some people, myself included. I ask it questions when I'm thinking through things. And so the fact that one single company has access to that level of, I would call it Orwellian control, I think should scare people. It's certainly scared me into not telling it nearly what I would like to if I could. The one cool thing about the system that we're building is we operate all jobs, all workloads inside of a trusted execution environment, fully encrypted. So no one entity can see your data, which ultimately is a powerful thing ideologically. Whether or not that's what OpenAI would want to do, I think obviously they don't want to do that because they can make a fortune with the data. And I guess the question now is, does the user really care? I think we've learned maybe that the user doesn't care. But I think the user should care in this instance, and it's something we're passionate about, and I think we're doing the right thing with the execution environments, even if not on like a personal, your mother's basis. She might not care, but the people who do care are hospitals, legal firms, financial firms. This is a non-starter if you don't have that. And that's the market that we're attacking. The consumer market, it's a much more interesting, maybe more volatile market. But I do think that consumers should be concerned and should at least be aware of the level of power that you're giving these people and these companies by being so personal with these services who are not personal back, even though it feels that way. And then on the sort of compute structuring side, correct. I mean, Project Stargate, which they're building here in Texas, Abilene, that'll be a massive, massive build. Hundreds of billions of dollars they're projecting to spend, if not trillions. Again, this feels inefficient. It feels wrong. It feels like you could do it in a better way, doesn't it? And there are plenty of these mom and pop owners, guys, girls who own 100 GPUs, 500 GPUs, 10,000 GPUs. If you can stitch those guys together, we've proven that you can train. OpenAI actually has proven that you can train decentralized via the data centers, not decentralized like with your MacBook, my MacBook. That doesn't make any sense. I think you always have some economy of scale. But right now, I think you're right to point out that these monolithic data centers are not going to be the end state.
Yeah, and one thing I was just thinking about as y'all were talking about that is I think people forget how much information they've given to their AI. Like to your point, so there was a prompt, I saw it on Twitter at some point, so I asked ChatGPT, like, tell me everything you know about me. And there was stuff that it knew about me that I didn't even remember about myself. Like there was like just a lot of times I'll use it in chat mode just to like brainstorm random things. And one day I was goofing around with like making some hybrid game of soccer and baseball that was not kickball. And I was like, what even is that? It's like, then like I asked it a follow-up question, like, oh yeah, I did talk about that. And so I think people just forget like what all you've told it at some point in time. So it's a big deal.
Well, it's nuts. I would just add there, anecdotally, my brother last weekend he asked ChatGPT, tell me about myself, my strengths, my weaknesses, everything. And he was like, oh my God, this is spot on.
Yeah.
In a scary way. Not like, oh, this is so great that it knows me, but like, how does it know me so well? We're seeing that play out in real time with the amount of money that's flowing in. I mean, these people are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year to research. It's like you're no longer actually a human. You're kind of like an institution if you can research at this level, because it's like institutional levels of power. It's wild. It really is. There needs to be some sort of solution here. Otherwise, I don't see how this necessarily ends well. And I'm definitely the type of person which attracted me to the space in the first place who believes in human freedom and giving the human the ability to choose their destiny. And I do worry that it's an overwhelming amount of control within a very, very small amount of hands.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I wanted to dig into too is, like you mentioned, like how like an institution might use something like this. And that's definitely a big deal for a lot of large companies. So my day job's with a large company, very concerned about any kind of internal things leaking outside of that kind of thing. So talk more about how like a large company might use that if they are concerned with that. Like how does the security that is offered through like something like y'all do with Manifold support those goals of theirs or those needs?
100%. So we use what's called the trusted execution environment. For a miner to come onto the subnet, to come onto Targon, they must pass NVIDIA attestation. NVIDIA has the private key to a machine, proving that it is indeed an NVIDIA machine, NVIDIA certified. NVIDIA has a confidential computing solution, which ensures that your computing is confidential. I mean, it's in the name. It's not so hard to figure out. But the thing is, a lot of the large companies like a Meta, let's pick on Meta now. I know we picked on Lambda, which was kind of fun, but Meta will be interesting. And Meta does this, but it's within their own walled garden. So the unlock with Targon is the fact that you can take an untrusted host and get them to run a trusted execution confidential environment, which allows us to solve this financing problem at its core and allows you, the company, to take the benefit of the cheaper cost of capital and then enjoy the confidence in a trusted execution environment where your data is encrypted, secure. We can't see it. The miner can't see it. No one can see it. And we haven't taken it to market yet because this is something that you got to make sure is totally perfect. And we're just rolling it out now. But within the next few months, I think we're going to be able to onboard some real institutional players who simply need this, and it doesn't exist yet in the market.
Awesome.
So, I mean, going to your earlier point and picking on Meta, right? Like, how do you compete about getting talent when Meta's offering like, dude, we'll give you $100 million to fucking join us? Like, that's fucking insane, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you know, like you got to be super mission focused, right? Obviously. But at the end of the day, also, like what drives people are the financial incentives. I wonder, is the magazine that they're playing with, it's like they're just firing off higher caliber bullets. And it's like, how do you think about, like, you're a startup founder. How do you think about scoping your talent and then getting your talent to be like, this is why you should be here rather than there?
Well, if I knew, we would be about 100+ people already. I think it's a very hard challenge. It's hard to compete against 100 million. But the beautiful thing is, I don't necessarily think we need to be that way. So when I say 100+ people, I actually think that's the old way of thinking about it. And I think that the power of Bittensor is, or any of these decentralized networks, is its ability to find the best people in the world organically. And an example, actually, is one of our miners is the entity who figured out the trusted execution environments for us initially. They made that breakthrough. It wasn't anyone here at Manifold, and we could have been a 100-people company. We still might not have gotten it, right? Because when you're in a company all day long, you do exist, at least to some extent, within an echo chamber. And when I think about how do we compete against these guys, it's probably more of, okay, where are they going? Where's the industry going? There's a lot of money that's been sunk into this transformer architecture, the scaling law hypothesis, all of this stuff. We're thinking all day long about, okay, maybe how does the industry become more efficient and how are they actually wrong? And maybe this is not the right direction and perhaps looks a bit like a bubble. I think we could be in a bit of a bubble. I think there's a lot of people who are in business who probably should not be in business. That's the nature of any gold rush. And so I think we're in a gold rush. And $100 million, I don't know if that's worth it to pay. I mean, they've clearly determined that it is. We don't know how true that is either. But let's assume that it is true, which it very well could be. Then it shows how large the opportunity is. It actually gives me more confidence because it proves that we're not only directionally correct, but we're beyond directionally correct. And if money is ultimately the driver of how many people can adopt these tools, then our job, if our only job, it's not a very sexy job, it doesn't have to be, but we're driving down the cost of compute via the marketplace. And if we do that, you'll empower Meta, but you'll also empower a new lab to emerge and compete with Meta in a way that Meta can't scale. Because, as we kind of talked about earlier, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but when you layer on the distributed incentive, offer 100% utilization to these compute companies, owners, you can grow your fleet at a quicker pace. And if you become hypercompute efficient, like a DeepSeek, what was one of the biggest breakthroughs over the last 6-12 months in AI? It was actually through the lab that was the most constrained. And when you're pinned against a wall, you do things that actually move the industry forward. None of the labs since GPT launched in late 22 have really moved the ball forward. They've just been throwing more compute at the problem. It's a big money game, but I don't know if this actually gets us to ASI, AMI, advanced machine intelligence. I think right now you just have a very cool piece of software. I don't think anyone should really be scared of it. You should be scared of the level of control you're giving the companies that run this software. But to answer your question in this totally roundabout way, I realize, it's a sign that we're in the right place. It's a sign that maybe it's getting a little bit frothy and people are losing their minds. There's a lot of chaos. So that means we must keep our minds. We don't need to play that game necessarily. We need to find the right people to bring into the company, and we need to continue to use the network, the tool that we have, to organically find the smartest, most mission-driven people. And ironically, they don't even need to be mission-driven necessarily by default. It's like, oh, I don't care about money. No, if you assume that they care about money the most, what actually happens is they end up finding the most efficient solution because they want to save money, right?
Oh, yeah.
We assume that the miners on Bittensor do the least amount of work for the most amount of money. And over time, your system becomes more and more bulletproof, really by the interval, by the minute. So that's what I have to say about the 100 million. But that sounds nice. I mean, if someone gave me 100 million, I'd certainly think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't just throw it out right away. I don't know if I'd take it, but I'd think about it.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a buddy of mine who is working at an AI startup, and then he got an interview with OpenAI. And I was like, bro, did you get the $100 million offer? He's like, no, but they said that they're watching, they're keeping an eye on my work to make sure that like maybe later on when there's a hiring spree, they might consider hiring me. But I'm like, bro, even if they give you 69 million, I would be like, consider it. That's like a crazy like walk away number, right? That is wild. Because it's really interesting. Like you said, it is like a super frothy space. Yeah, it's like everyone's trying to just keep this roster of talent, right? Whether they actually utilize the talent or not, it's like I really don't know. But it is also very interesting to your point with the TE breakthrough, right? Where it's like, these real discoveries are happening at a grassroots level. And it's like capturing that and then identifying the fact that like, bro, you can compound your value here financially and contribute like more over here rather than in a larger space, because over there you're just stuck to work within these parameters.
That's correct. I think that is the draw to a network like Bittensor and why you want to be a miner on Bittensor. If you're highly intelligent, you can make millions of dollars anywhere in the world at any time on your time. And I think let's use basic math here because it's easy for me at least, not for you guys because you guys can do math better than me. But
he looks at the Asian guy. He's looking at the fucking Asian guy. Hey, I failed accounting 4 times in a row, bro. Basic arithmetic does not go in my head.
Okay, we got the wrong.
Yeah,
guy.
we got the wrong Asian. There are like a billion people. You picked the one wrong fucking Asian. Right? Yeah,
that's pretty good. So let's just say there's 200 people who can actually move the needle in the world. Maybe 150 are in the United States. That's probably being generous, but let's just say 150. So that means there are 50 people outside of the U.S. They might not be able to work in the U.S. They can't work for the leading labs. Where do they go? What do they do? But they're geniuses. And if given the chance, they could move the ball forward. That is the sell of a network like Bittensor. Find those people, empower them, pay them, and get them aligned within this ecosystem to ultimately compete with the biggest of the players.
Cool. I like it. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about Bittensor then as well, because you mentioned them as well, right? Like, so tell me about Bittensor.
Well, that's a long one. Bittensor at the highest level is a marketplace for digital commodities. So the protocol has 7,200 tokens that are emitted a day in inflation. The current price is, what's the current price? The current price is about $300. So that means you got what? About $2.1 million a day. of inflation, of incentive for these miners to come and do a good job. What we do at Manifold and at Targon is we are a subnet owner. So within this protocol, there are 128 different subnetworks. Each subnet gets a slice of that 2.1 million a day. With that 2.1 million, you need to create, I kind of think of it as a game. And within this game, your miners, the workers, really the most important part of the entire thing, are going and doing a specific task. On our subnet, it's a simple task. You just need to own hardware, bring that hardware onto the network, and if your hardware passes NVIDIA attestation, as we discussed, you will earn the reward. So it's no different from us going to a cloud provider like a CoreWeave and saying, hey, we need this many H200s. But instead of us paying for it directly through our US dollar bank account, the subnet pays for it. This is interesting, right? Because now you're probably thinking, well, isn't this all just an inflationary game and won't there be a death spiral? Well, this is why we were talking earlier. You have to go out and generate organic demand and then feed that organic demand back into the network. So the way I've been thinking about it, and I know I came off hot with the bid-ask stuff because I've been thinking about it a lot recently, but it's really a powerful concept when you really start to understand it, because if you're telling the miner, here, the miner says $2.05 an hour, and then you have a startup, could be your startup, could be my startup. We say, hey, I need 8 GPUs at 205. Oh, I come onto the market and I'm matched. That is the same logic you should think through when thinking about how does this subnet scale, where we're finding the most efficient price for compute, the supply side, and then we're matching the demand side. It's not so hard to get the supply side because of the importance of utilization, and it's not too hard to get the demand side either when you're shaving 10% off of millions of dollars in monthly spend. So in traditional software, traditional cloud, CPU-based cloud, the money was made on the margin, the software on top. The jury's out on whether this is actually going to occur with GPUs, because you need, for every GPU, you get increased performance. It's not like, oh, it's another CPU, I don't even notice it. It's like, no, this is better TPS, lower latency. It's a better experience for your users. So if your goal as a cloud is to say, oh, I'm going to aggregate compute, build some incredible software on top, charge 10% margin, my hunch is that your users will say, whatever your software is, I'm spending $10 million a month with you. 10%, that's $1 million. I could probably just go build it myself. That's $12 million a year. So I think the economics here are interesting in the sense that, maybe the way that we've thought about CPUs should not be applied to GPUs. Jury's out, right? And we're thinking through it in real time here at DEAI in Austin, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
But we are building this market. Our miners are, many of them are actually institutional at this point. It's kind of like Bitcoin mining. We've watched it go from the retail miner to the institutional miner. The institutional miners are just a little bit more professional. The retail guys are great too, honestly, because they've pushed the ball forward. But we're really trying to operate at a massive scale now. And that scale requires real capital. So that's what we do on Bittensor, but there's many other things on Bittensor. There's data scraping, which I think is interesting, to the extent you can get private company data as well. I think the web is over-scraped, to be honest. I think that, what else is interesting on Bittensor? There's a few pre-training subnets. They're trying to, stitch together more low-level consumer compute and train an open-source model. It could work. It's interesting. It really is interesting. There's a fine-tuning platform on Bittensor. So a company would upload a model and a data set, and then it would send that job to a miner. That miner will fine-tune the model on the data set to give the company a better model for their use case. So these sorts of AI-specific tasks are happening all over the place right now in Bittensor. It's still early, so everyone's still figuring it out. If there was a syllabus for how to win, we would have won. right?
Yeah.
So it's happening in real time, which is exciting. But at its core, it's a market for digital commodities. It's always been my view that compute's the most important one of those commodities. You got data, you got storage; those are auxiliary. If you can solve compute, I think it's a massive unlock for people. And we've chosen to build on Bittensor well because we've been here for a long time, and it's a liquid market.
Nice. So I'd love to get to know a little bit more about Manifold. Like you already mentioned, so y'all run a subnet within Bittensor, but maybe talk a little bit more about overall like Manifold, what you all do, like how people could experience the offerings that y'all have, that kind of thing.
Sure. Great question. Targon.com is our primary front end at the moment. We can put it maybe in the description, Targon.com, and maybe any of your users will enjoy signing up because right now it's $20 for 500 million tokens on any model, which is a very good deal if you're in the inference business. Anything on top of that is 20 cents off the market price, the lowest price in the market. So Targon is an inference business. It's an inference API. It's OpenAI compatible. So what that means is if you're currently using ChatGPT, the OpenAI API, it's a one-line code change to begin using Targon. You can pay through US dollars. It's kind of feels and looks like a Web2 product. So that's our primary focus, and we power that through the subnet, which operates on Bittensor. It's subnet 4 on Bittensor, and that's what we do. We've played around in the past with Sybil.com. I'm wearing the shirt today. And that was just to prove that you could actually build something on top of Targon. You can use it. It's a search engine. It works on Targon. That's Manifold. We're about 11 people now, a couple interns for the summer, and it's been fun.
Very nice.
Why did you come to this particular problem of compute?
The financing stuff. My background actually is in finance.
Same here. So you can actually, you also can quasi do math, but mostly we just leave it to the bean counters. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sometimes the bean counters are good.
Yeah.
But it's a big financing problem, the compute. It's not really a technology problem. There's problems on the optimization side, of course, and there's things you can do, but the reality is the hardware is way too expensive, and the core reason why it's way too expensive, I mean, there's really two reasons. One, NVIDIA's just getting whatever they can. Good for them. They built something before the market knew it needed it, and now they have a massive advantage, and they have every right to take advantage of it. But by keeping their prices so high, you're going to incentivize competition. So it's kind of like, what do you want to do? And then reason two is the debt stuff that we already talked about. It just makes it really, really difficult to charge anything other than a pretty expensive hourly rate. And so just seeing how messed up this was made me realize, okay, there's probably something we could do here. Ideologically, kind of what we were talking about with the data and this stuff, this just speaks to me on a very personal level. I think sovereignty is the most beautiful thing. I think it's what made this nation what it is, empowering the individual. And so that's what got me into it initially. And then once I was in, I saw, okay, well, compute is kind of the biggest problem. And if you solve that, then you unlock everyone else. I recognize I'm not smart enough to move the ball down the field and create the next DeepSeek model. But how do you empower the next genius to do that? Well, give them access to compute and see what happens.
I like it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so I would love to dig a little bit more into your background, how you got into this. You mentioned you came into it from the finance side, but I think that for folks that want to be obviously they see the potential of AI, they want to get involved in that. Maybe talk a little about how your overall journey, but even things that you learned along the way that might help somebody that wants to get into this space.
Well, you can really do whatever you want is something that I've always believed if you set your mind to it. And I would tell this to anyone. Anything you set your mind to with enough persistence and passion and hard work, you can get there. It might not be the outcome that you thought initially, but you'll get there. I started in New York. I was doing traditional stuff. I was doing M&A. I was working in a group that was focused on financial technology. And then we brought on a guy who was covering digital assets. We brought on some clients that ultimately blew up, so I learned a lot there. And then I moved from that firm to another firm. It was kind of like I was dipping my toes in the water. It was a firm called GSR, which is a liquidity provider at its core. And that was where I found Bittensor. GSR provides liquidity for digital assets only. And so Tau at the time in 2022 had no market. So made the original market there in early 2023, which was really fun. That was one of the most fun times, actually, because I don't think anyone else would have done it. I'm confident in that. And after that, I moved down here to Austin to work very closely with the absolute smartest people around Bittensor, smartest person really, who I've now started Manifold with. When I met him at Consensus, I said, wow, this guy could go very far and we could go even further together. And then we were at OpenTensor and now we're at Manifold. So it's been kind of a windy journey. And if you're looking to get into the space, it's a green field. That's kind of the fun part about it. If you go into a highly competitive industry like investment banking right out of school or one of these sorts of more traditional career paths, well, everyone wants to do that. So it's highly competitive. Everyone's really good. It's hard to differentiate yourself. Everyone's willing to work hard. Everyone's smart. So it's kind of just a slog all the way to the top. But if you're good enough to play there and you come and play in a green field, that's fun because you can take everything you learned, at the big corporates, like stuff you guys have learned too, and apply it here in a world where some people have never even had a regular job. And that's just the reality, but that's what makes it the Wild West. And so if it speaks to you and you can't stop thinking about it, you should go and do it. And figure out how to be helpful. Everyone can be helpful always, right? Especially with ChatGPT now. I know we've been dunking on it a little bit, but it is helpful. And it makes everyone a generalist and really, really smart. I tell people, you only go one of two ways with AI now. You either become much smarter than you ever were, or you become more dumb than you could ever imagine, right? Because you let it think for you. There's really no middle ground with AI. It's not like, sometimes no. You either make the most of it or you don't. Maybe I think too binary there, but I really do believe that. So that's been my journey. I would love to see more people here at DEAI. So to the extent anyone has interest in coming and hanging out, you should always feel free to swing by. It's very fun here, actually, and a lot of people are doing cool things.
Yeah, one of the coolest things is like I have buddies from out of town and people from the world who are like visiting in like different capacities of like VCs or just like buddies working on like different projects. And I bring them in here to just be like, dude, just work here. Trust me. Like, even if you come in for a day or two, just the random opportunity for you to just like have a serendipitous conversation with some of these people is like super interesting, right? Like you coming from GSR, this other team that one of the guys, the founders is ex-Uber, right? Like, and meeting all these people and, like Luke coming from a TradFi background as well. Like all this stuff is super interesting for you to like discuss and then spawn off into a new startup that's there or contribute to an existing startup, right?
100%. Yeah, I think it's a good way to live your life is you never know what someone else knows.
Oh, yeah.
And every person I meet always knows more than I do about something, usually pretty much everything, but definitely something. And this is the space where you can definitely meet high potential people.
Yeah, for sure.
I got to ask, like, so, you mentioned earlier with like Targon, right? Like, firstly, how'd you come up with the name Targon?
Well,
you just have an affinity for the spice?
Well, that was Rob's doing, actually. It's something in League of Legends. I can't take credit for the name at all. I don't play League of Legends.
Yeah, neither do I.
Do you?
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah. I don't really play these games.
I don't either, but actually the episode that came out today, the two down members that were on, they're like big into League of Legends. So if somebody's listening to the episode that came out on July 3rd, like we talked a lot about it. I learned a ton. So,
well, that's good. League of Legends is something I've never played.
Yep.
But Targon's the name.
Okay. So like now that we know that, like, so it's really interesting with Targon you have like this 3-sided marketplace that you're kind of creating, right? 1, to get compute on there. 2, to get people to want to build models and data sets that also utilize, the compute that's there. But then you also mentioned this idea of getting enterprises on there. So is there any specific enterprise that like you think you would want on Targon that really leverages, like obviously healthcare being like one of the biggest ones, obviously with private data and making everything, really work. Like what is this sector of like a Web 2 or Web 1 industry that you'd be like, bro, I'm going to climb this fucking hill and if I would want to own this vertical?
Well, there's a couple ways to go. The most ambitious way to answer this question would be to answer with OpenAI. I think OpenAI could be a good customer of Targon. I actually don't think it's that ambitious. I think they'll probably use us at some point just because it makes sense, right? It's not even like, oh, I like these guys or anything. It's, oh, they just offer cheap compute and it's high quality and it's got InfiniBand and Rocky and we can train on it. We don't really care about any of the underlying token, right? That's just protocol level stuff that no one cares about. No one in the real world cares about. So OpenAI would be a good customer. And then you could I think you could do some quite interesting stuff with the government. And those are good contracts to have as a business. I think the government probably hasn't made up their mind on what their AI solution is going to be. And they're probably very concerned about customer data or the citizen data. They'll want a solution like the one that we have. And I think if we won that, we'd win it for a long time. So that's interesting. But really, I'm focused on the OpenAIs and the Anthropics. Not tomorrow. I don't think we're in a position to get them tomorrow. But could we get them within the next couple years? I like to think so. But we have to first execute, on a daily basis and make sure we're getting what we want, which is quality hardware at the right price. You don't want terrible hardware at the right price. You don't want quality hardware at the wrong price. It's kind of how do you design the system to get you quality hardware at the right price? I think the free market is usually correct.
I like it.
Yeah, same here. Well, James, this has been awesome, man. Really, really enjoyed spending some time with you. So if listeners want to kind of follow the work that you're doing with Manifold or even in other socials, like what's the best way to stay connected to you and to the company?
Well, I'm on X at James Woodman V. I think that's what it is. And then, you can follow us at Manifold Labs. You can come into the DEAI space, and you can definitely go check out Targon.com to run some models. And if it's wrong, just tell us what's wrong, and we'll fix it very fast.
Awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, James. Really, really enjoyed spending the time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the ATX DAO podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. To learn more about ATX DAO, visit us at atxdao.com and follow us on X, Farcaster, and LinkedIn at ATX DAO. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.